We have three speakers lined up who will speak from their own personal experience. The first one is, he gave me these words himself, so I'm not trying to insult him, but Bill is a grumpy old architect who has led architects for the last 15 years of his 25-year career. He has recently been painfully reminded of the importance of some key points he will talk about in this presentation. So we're looking forward to hearing about your pain, Bill.
How's this? All right, it works. Let me just get it adjusted right so we don't have too much feedback. Thank you for coming, everybody. As I said, I'm Bill Beshilas. I'm with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and today's topic is going to be about creating an architecture organization. And while I'm fiddling with this thing, too many controls. Okay. So here's the contents, what we're going to cover today. Before I get into it, how many of you lead or manage architects? All right, so half the group. This will be great, because then we can talk about war stories. So first, going to talk briefly about really setting context. So, reasons to mature your organization. Why would you want to do it? How we present to our clients, why they would want to do it, or more importantly, they come to us with problems and how we can help them solve those problems. Next, we'll actually talk about our framework, the Office of the Architect, and what that looks like, ways to roll it out, and then, more importantly, what I think you're all here for is what you need to do to make it stick. And so that's what we're going to cover today. Real quick, I do nowadays, especially in my role at Pricewaterhouse, refer to myself as a grumpy old architect. For those who aren't familiar with PwC, this is the marketing terms. We're the largest advisory firm in the world. I don't know what that means is across our assurance, tax, advisory practice, we have more consulting professionals than anybody else in the world. I am from our advisory group consulting arm. I'm part of our Enterprise Architecture Center of Excellence, which means I'm helping to rebuild our architecture capabilities within the firm. If you're not familiar with it, the big four accounting firms jettisoned, except for Deloitte, their consulting arms several years ago. We're all rebuilding our consulting arms, and so I've been asked, pulled out of the field, pulled out of billable assignments to help build our architecture capabilities internally. And so that's means a lot of different things. Prior to PwC, I led an enterprise architecture group for a large property and casualty insurance, Fortune 100. I had 40 enterprise technical architects underneath me, and then I've also done a number of different roles. So the abstract, and I put the abstract back up because I noticed that someone took in some artistic liberty with the abstract that was submitted to the, that's actually printed. And what I want to point out is that what I'm going to talk about, and due to the nature of our business, we consult IT organizations. So it's going to be very IT-centric. So those who are in product engineering groups, product architecture groups, actually building software architecture for products, not quite as applicable as some of my examples, but the concepts will still hold. And it shouldn't be 20 clients. We've actually used this framework on over 30 clients and continues to grow it as a practice. So, reasons. Oh, I'm sorry. The presentation is up on the website. There are 30 slides in there. I'm not going to go through all 30 slides, only about 14. What I did was I included some of the slides that you could use as your own reference. I could have moved them simply into an appendix, but then you'd lose some of the context where they fit. So I'm just going to, when I flip through certain slides, I mean to, because it's just not germane. But I leave it there for you guys to use if you want. So please. So this, I talked about in this section, why do clients engage us to help them build out their architecture organization? And a lot of our clients, as we talk to them about what does it mean to have architecture capability, it's about bridging the gap between the business and execution. And what we sell them on, we help them to understand is, we view architecture, it's about designing the business, and we really do apply design to the business. Our operating model framework is about how do you define an operating model. Same principles of software architecture design applied as principles of designing a business. Coupling cohesion applies just as much to organizational structures and roles and capabilities as it does to modules and functions and everything. So what we do is we educate our clients on how an architecture capability can help bridge the gap between their strategy and execution. So one reason why clients ask us to work with them is to do exactly that. And we talk about some of the key services an architecture organization provides, and I'll talk about that later. More often, what happens is the client comes to us and says, I have a problem, and I need help. And what we've done over the time is distill the problems into 3 broad categories. You can read for yourself, the categories at the top, but then indications of it. And what I want to just call out is, wow, hello. If you're not, so insufficient level architecture definition. What that really translates to, for example, architecture seen as having no impact on either business or IT results. They don't see the value in architecture. And I don't know about you, but I've heard that times before. They don't see the value of architecture. Or, I wonder if we can get rid of the RGB. Good. Okay. Informal, no defined processes for managing and delivering architecture projects. So what does that mean? Everything's the number one priority. There isn't a formal work intake process. There isn't a formal prioritization, which goes back to ineffective or non-existent architecture organization. And so the point being is these are many of the things we hear from our clients as to why they want to mature their architecture organization. And then if they mature their architecture organization, these are the value, or these are the positives, what you can get from a mature architecture organization. Let me talk about this one real quick, and it's probably a good time to level set. When I use the word enterprise architecture, and I'm sure others have heard this, enterprise architecture is both a noun and a verb. There's a process of creating an enterprise architecture, so that is a noun. It's the blueprints, it's the definition of what, the design of the organization. And then enterprise architecture is also the process of creating that enterprise, that blueprint or design. And so one of the things that in maturing their architecture organization we talk about is they create the EA. It helps them to measure it as an asset. It also drives alignment between the strategy and the execution arms. Oops, wrong way. Wait, one. I'll get this right. Okay. So then this is just another way to talk about the benefits and the reasons for maturing your architecture organization. And in my words, the architecture organization bridges, as I said in the previous example, between the strategic view of the company and the execution, the tactical. How many times have we seen people being focused very much on just tactically, I got to get it out the door, not worrying about how it aligns the overall organizational strategy. And then it also helps to look across the enterprise as opposed to the silos. So there's a multiple dimension box, and actually Forrester does a really good job explaining it about where architecture fits and how it helps out. In maturing an architecture organization, I want to just point out that the Office of the Architect framework that I'm going to talk about really only addresses the first phases of maturity. There's a lot more to it, and this just gets you started. So now I'm going to actually talk about the framework. And I want to first define the term framework. When I use the term framework, it's an approach and a set of templates that we use and tailor to our client-specific needs. So it's not a methodology. It's not lockstep. There is no, you do step A and then step B and step C and you'll get it out. It's a set of frameworks or a set of templates and an approach and artifacts that we've accumulated over the number of engagements that we've codified and standardized to some degree that we can use for our different clients. And the framework is made up of these 4 facets, and it actually aligns to the work tracks: architecture, organization, and here, in a nutshell, architecture organization is about what is the mission and vision of the group. What are you going to focus on? What are you going to accomplish? Which then, from that, drives roles, responsibilities. It drives the type of services that the architecture service catalog defines, and I'll show you an example of that. It drives how you actually do service delivery, and then it also helps to structure the guidance or the governance that that is relevant to the organization. So what you see here is, in pictures, what I just talked about, the 4 facets. You have EA management enablers up, going down. These are the services that we've determined, over time, is what a typical architecture organization provides to the enterprise. And I'm sure people have questions about, well, where does a software architect live? Where does he provide work? And that's project architecture support, and I could talk more about this, but these are the services that an architecture organization provides across, and we use our methodology for defining the life cycle of a project, but you can map this to RUP. Inception and elaboration is strategy and assess. Design is still part of elaboration, construction and transition, and these services correspond to the life cycle. So typically early on in the strategy phase, you're doing innovation, strategic planning, standards definition and management, and reference architecture definition and management. When you actually once you create your roadmaps, you start to manage your portfolio, optimize your portfolio, you do your yearly planning, and then when you go into execution, you actually start working with the execution teams to focus on vendor selections, POCs, and then actual execution of the engagement or the work. So in the time that I was given, there's a lot more to the framework than just what I showed you, but that's as much as I can go in the time frame. And, in this section, what I want to talk about is how we roll it out. And let me just say, this is not a pitch for us to come do work for you. What I'm hoping you'll get is ideas of how you can mature your architecture organization. And that's really the whole point of this. Because document and assess current ADA practices, what that really means is understand your context. What environment are you running in? What kind of skills do you have? What are the competencies? More importantly, what are your stakeholders looking from you? So it's really understanding your context. Once you understand your context, then you can start defining your operating model. Principles, value, mission, what services are you going to focus on, what metrics are you going to collect and use to report out to show value. And then once you define that operating model, it's laying out that roadmap for how you're actually going to mature that organization and the case for change. I have yet to see an organization that has, an architecture organization, that lives in a vacuum, if you will. Yeah, no, it actually lives in a vacuum. And so it's important that you communicate that case for change to your stakeholders. And I'll talk about some really concrete examples. Okay, here's the good part. And I'm hoping that, if you have questions, please stop and ask me. Sorry. Again, I'm not going to read to you these slides or the bullets on the points. What I want to call is just a couple of key insights that we've taken from these number of engagements. For example, number 3, a centralized team of architects is critical in driving EA standards and approach. We absolutely have come to believe in the engagements in our experience that you do need a centralized group. Now, let me say that that group doesn't need to be a large group. It could be a core group of 8, 9 architects. Again, and I speak from like a Fortune 100, Fortune 200 company. Adjust according to your size, adjust according to your vision, mission. But having a central architectural organization that isn't in the weeds all the time, that can get their head in the clouds, think strategically, is important. Number 4, and this talks to the keynote this morning. Enterprise architects, these strategic architects, they can't be 100% just in the clouds. They have to be on projects 60% of the time. Don't take me literally 60%, but the point is they have to be engaged in projects. It's a feedback loop. It keeps them grounded, builds a tremendous amount of credibility with the other stakeholders. 6. Yeah, actually, we experience this as a group internally, and in clients I see it also. The leader of the architectural organization has to be someone who can communicate, who's out there marketing and selling to the stakeholders. Let's face it, a lot of us architects don't necessarily like to do that. We believe in our good work should speak for itself. That's not the case in most organizations. And so the leader of the architectural organization has to, what we've seen work is exactly what's up on the slide, having an EA director and a chief architect. So the director is the one doing administrative work, handling the communication in conjunction with the chief architect. It's very seldom you can find an architect that is both an administrator, a marketer, and an architect. And so knowing that you need a marketer at the head of the organization is paramount. And then number 8, enterprise architecture now is the best name for communicating. In the context, there are other things. What we found internally as I helped to build out our architecture capability and working with our business experts, our management consultant types, if you talk to them about what we're going to do business architecture, we're going to build the architecture of the organization, their eyes glaze over right away. We've actually stopped using the word architecture, and we use the word design. Design resonates with a lot of people. Let's face it, architects, everyone and their brother is an architect these days. I mean, think about how many different titles we have for architects. And so architecture has become overloaded, and we've started to use different terms, design being one. So what this slide says is there's some things you need to do within your architectural organization as you mature. So there's an internal focus, and then there's this broader context that you need to be aware of. And I'm going to focus on the broader context. I'm glad to see that the 2 next speakers are talking about communities of interest. That's absolutely key to building a strong architectural organization. It's very seldom that you're going to have all the architects in your group. And so by building a community, you build adoption of the standards, principles, reference architectures. So community of interest is important. Understanding the broader drivers. making sure you know what's needed. So what does that mean? If the organization is a very tactical organization and they operate quarterly, they're probably not interested in big strategic roadmaps and big reference architectures. They're probably more interested in project architecture support. They're probably interested in POCs. So that is an example of focusing on what does the organization need. Understanding what your stakeholders need. We helped them with their architecture organization, and then a year later we went back and did a report card. I can speak firsthand because I delivered both engagements. We interviewed the stakeholders. They told us what they wanted out of the architecture organization. We built the operating model around it. We built a case for change around what they wanted. A year later, we went back and did I went back and did a report card, and right, wrong, or different, everyone had forgotten what they'd asked for, and it was right back. They wanted the architectural organization to be more strategic, more focused on the long term. A year later, all they cared about was tactical. And so, one, really understanding the context and really getting down to the problems that are being solved is important. And two, this one, communicate, communicate, communicate. We laid out a communication plan for our clients in terms of communicating the value of the change, communicating what they're doing, and the frequency of change and frequency of communication to impact the change. And too often our clients, the groups that we consult to, didn't follow on the communication part. Going back to one of the previous insights, talking about having a leader who's out there, an architecture leader, who's out there communicating about the change that the organization is going through, the value that they're imparting. So that's why you start collecting the metrics and being able to communicate the metrics. That's why you have a work intake process so that there is no ambiguity, and you know what you're working on, the measures are clear. So it's understand the drivers, understand your stakeholders. I can't stress that enough. Building that community interest, and then communicate, communicate, communicate. I mean, that's just absolutely key. And so, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. This presentation will be up on the site. Actually is up on the site. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
I'll try to screen. You mentioned enterprise architecture. Does that include applied architecture or business architecture? If you could just comment on kind of different kinds of architecture and if that's included.
It is included. We look at it holistically. And so when we define a service, so for example, strategic planning, there are many roles that go into enterprise architecture, business architecture, technology architecture. There are many roles needed to create a strategic plan, a blueprint, and a roadmap. You need both business architecture and technical architecture. We do stop what we call project architects or solution architects, meaning we don't typically see, those are down in development organizations where we typically see. We don't see them often brought into one central architecture organization. But if it is, then the services account for them. Is that?
I had a question here in terms of when you form an organization like this. It's one of the challenges I've seen and other people have mentioned. The issue of trying to decide how to staff such an organization when you're building it up. Because there are clearly some relative trade-offs. You bring people in, you take developers or others and try to move them into an architecture role, there are pros and cons of doing that. If you try to bring people in from the outside, again, there's pros and cons in each of those cases. So from your experience, both in terms of the effectiveness from an execution standpoint and the ability to build credibility with the other people you're addressing, what kind of approaches do you think are most helpful in terms of staffing?
Speaking firsthand from when I built an architecture organization at this insurance company, it was a hybrid. And it was, we had senior architects. I was brought in to lead the organization, and we hired people. And so it was old and new brought together to drive the architecture organization. And I think that's important. A lot of people will want to, honestly, especially a lot of the change agents at the more senior level, you know, CTO, CIO types, they want to throw out all the old, but you can't, because the you need that context, you need that history, you need that legacy. They have the network, so you need that, but you also need some of the new talent, new ideas, new drivers, and so I really do think it's a combination of both.
In some of the companies that you are dealing with, probably you see both roles, CTO and CIO, next to each other. Comparing those companies to the companies that have only CIO, which always answers to the financial guy, the CFO, versus this, how free the architects are in the company that they have CTO and CIO versus just the CIO?
That's a great question. I got to think about that one because honest answer is I don't have good, because I've been fortunate enough, and I will say this, I've been fortunate enough that I've seen the CIO CTO part. It's my belief that the CIO reporting to the CFO type is less effective. Because think about, actually, I can speak pragmatically speaking, talking about stakeholders. The CIO is worried about his paycheck, reporting to CFO. What's the CFO all about? Cut, cut, cut. He's about his accounting systems. Without going to it, the CIO is a first-order citizen in an organization. It has to be. CTO doesn't necessarily have to be, except maybe in a product company, but in a normal or a non-software, non-product company, CIO is a first-order citizen with the CFO. I mean, information technologies. Tell me what industry can live without information technology. But now I think we also have to rethink. And I apologize to those who are not part of IT. We have to rethink our roles in IT. We got to stop being order takers and start thinking about innovation and how to drive digital transformations. It's a different mindset, but CIO has to be a first order citizen.
I was very inspired by an IT manager in a bank in Holland who gave a speech at an architecture conference where he said that they told their IT staff and their developers, you are no longer IT people, you are bankers. Because IT has become so central to the bank that you should consider yourself to be, the most important people in the bank. And they stopped all outsourcing. They said, because we cannot afford to outsource the banking. That's what they said. Anyway, that was the last comment from my side. I thank you very much, Bill.